Some of my friends asked me years ago in the 1990s, we're sitting around talking about the 93 playoff run from Montreal. What was the most unique NHL playoff that I had ever seen or covered? Well, for a lot of people, especially those in the media, has to do with the 1972-73 NHL playoffs, and I tell you why. Not only did we had three major contenders moving up in the standings to challenge, Montreal had to beat two of them. It was kind of the last gasp with the old Chicago Blackhawks mini dynasty of the 60s and early 70s. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the playoffs, how it played out. Now in the regular season East Division, Montreal Canadiens ended up with 120 points, 13 ahead against the Boston Bruins. Rangers were third, and the very, very great Buffalo Sabres squad that year, which had the French connection, finished with 88 points, 37, 27, and 14, and played Montreal the first round. Now, ironically, Detroit came within 2 points of making the playoffs, and as a sign of future problems with the franchise, Toronto didn't make the playoffs that year. Vancouver ended up 7th, with the Islanders 8th. Now, the West Division, Chicago, the Flyers, Minnesota, and St. Louis played against each other, with Pittsburgh and the Kings just 3 points out of a playoff spot. Now, no teams in the playoffs that year swept their opponents. The last time this would happen would be 1991, and no series required a maximum number of games. This was the last time this has happened to date. In addition, the Blackhawks reached the Stanley Cup Finals without the captain. The last time this would happen until 2014. Now, very unique first round matchup. Buffalo and Montreal took on each other against the French Connection versus an up-and-coming Guy Lafleur and the established stars of the late 60s and 1970s. This was Buffalo's first playoff berth, and again the first meeting between the Habs and the Swords. Again, Buffalo had entered the NHL in 71, and were within 2 years were playing the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the winner of the series, a lot of people felt, was going to win the Stanley Cup. Yes, Buffalo had that good of a team. Now, the opening contest went Montreal's way with a 2-1 victory at the Forum. The next night, Montreal outplayed and outworked Buffalo for a 7-3 victory. Now, 2 nights after that, back in the odd, Montreal won a big 5-2 victory. Now, April 8th was an interesting game. Buffalo completely dominated with a 5-1 victory. Now, a lot of people felt that Montreal was going to wrap up the series back in Montreal on April 10th, but Buffalo came back and won 3-2 in overtime. And a hard-fought Game 6 where Montreal won 4-2 allowed the Sabres to win the love of the fans across North America, and again became for a lot of people one of the most popular non-Canadian teams in the NHL. Now, the big series that nobody talked about that year, no one expected, was the Bruins against the Rangers. The Rangers finished third in the East Division with 102 points, with Boston second at 107. This was the 9th playoff meeting between these two teams, with Boston winning 6 of the 8 previous sets. The last met in the previous year's Stanley Cup Finals, which Boston won in 6 games. The teams did split their 6-game regular season series. Now, ironically, it was a Rangers series from the outset. They won the first 2 games in Boston by scores of 6-2 and 4-2, but Boston came back for a comeback victory at MSG 4-2 on April 7th. Boston won Game 4, lost Game 4 against the Rangers on April 8th, and then the Rangers won their 3rd road game of the series to take it in 5, a 6-3 victory. Now, a very, very unique matchup here. Chicago played St. Louis in the first round. St. Louis, who had made it to 3 Stanley Cup Finals in the late 1960s. Now, the Blackhawks finished first in the West with 93 points, while the Blues finished fourth in the West with 76. This was the first playoff meeting between these two squads, and he also split the regular season series. But in this set, Chicago had the upper hand, winning 7-1 and 1-0 at home, winning 5-2 in Game 4 at St. Louis Arena. St. Louis won the second of the set, 5-3 at home, with Chicago winning 6-1 in a very dominant series to take it 4-1. Now, here where it gets really, really interesting. The Philadelphia Flyers and Minnesota North Stars played, and this was the creation of the Flyers-Minnesota rivalry, which went on up until the mid-1970s. The Flyers and Stars finished tied for second in the West, each with 85 points, but the Flyers, the much more offensive team, no pun intended, won the tiebreaker in total goals for 296 to 254. This was the first playoff meeting between these two squads, and Philadelphia won 3 of the 5 games in the regular season. Now, a lot of people thought it was going to go 7 games, and here's why. Minnesota won the opener at the Spectrum 3-0, only to lose 4-1 in Game 2. The Stars shut out the Flyers again, using their defensive style, but the Flyers then went on a kind of a defensive rampage, winning 3-0 in Game 4, 3-2 in overtime in Game 5, and then 4-1 at the Met to take a 4-2 victory. So it just set up a very, very interesting semifinal series between Montreal and Philadelphia. Some people felt that Philadelphia had enough to beat Montreal, and Game 1 was tough. The Flyers won 5-4 in the Forum. Game 2 was a similar game, but Montreal outlasted Philadelphia, winning 4-3 in overtime. So you can imagine if Montreal had been 2 down going back to Philadelphia. But from then on, it was all Montreal. They won 2-1, 4-1 at the Spectrum, and 5-3 at home. But again, if Bobby Clark or Barber would have scored any time in overtime in Game 2, it would have a whole different ball game. Now, the Chicago Rangers series, a lot of people felt this was probably the most underrated set of the playoffs. This was the 5th playoff meeting between these two squads, with Chicago winning 3 of the 4 previous series. They had last met in the previous year's Stanley Cup semis, which New York won in a 4-game sweep. The team split this year's season's regular campaign with 2 wins each. Now, from the start, it was 4-1 Rangers. From there, it was all Chicago. 5-4 at the Stadium, 2-1 and 3-1 back in MSG, and 4-1 for the Rangers. Now, the final itself, we did a previous podcast on this. I'm just going to cover it pretty fast. This was a goal lover's dream, ladies and gentlemen. Montreal had won 8-3 and 4-1 at the Forum to start off, but back in Chicago won 7-4 with Montreal winning 4-0. Now, Montreal had an opportunity to win the Stanley Cup on home ice for the first time in a number of years, but due to a bad game between former teammates Tony Esposito and Ken Dryden, ended up 8-7 for Chicago, with Montreal winning 6-4 in the final game to take the cup. Now, the idea about that May 8 game, and like I said, I wish there was some tape about that contest, because it was quite interesting. I didn't have a chance to watch that game because I may have been doing some activities. We all thought that Montreal definitely was going to win Game 5. Now, we all know Chicago lost to Montreal in 71. They didn't want to maybe lose the opportunity for the Cup at the Montreal Forum because, pride and everything else. But, ladies and gentlemen, the idea about Chicago scoring 8 goals against the Montreal Canadiens, that 73 campaign, is quite, like I said, quite bizarre. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to do, if you have a chance, go online, look at the statistics of that series, all the different series, and you look at all the teams that made the playoffs that year. Really, the only team that would not deserve to win the Stanley Cup that year was probably St. Louis, and maybe number 2, Minnesota. And for obvious reasons, Chicago, the Rangers, the Flyers, Montreal, Buffalo, Chicago would be more than deserving to win the Cup. This was probably the last wide open Stanley Cup final playoffs we had in quite some time. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. If you're a big fan of the mid-1970s NHL, there's various other podcasts here that talk about the players and moments in that mid-decade. Please let us know what you think. And don't forget, as we say in Northern New Brunswick, keep your stick in the ice. Have a good evening. Bye.